Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Shanth Enjeti Art. I am working on a page of my upcoming INDIEGOGO comic book, NOSFERO, the Crypt Walker. Thanks for joining me tonight as I do some artwork this stream. Hope everybody's doing well and having a great evening. My wife has been telling me that I need to make sure that I schedule these things. So I'm going to start scheduling them about 30 to 40 minutes before I go live so that people who are interested will get a heads up and know that they're coming up. So here we go. I've been working on this page now off and on because when I'm working I usually try to make sure that I get a solid amount of work done on every page so I can come back and take a look at it. And this is one of those pages where I wanted to solve a couple of things on it and figure out how the story was going to go in terms of visually. I know where the story's going, but I wanted to make sure that that everything lined up. And when it came to this this dog character right here, this hellhound as it were, I wanted to make sure that it tied into the double page spread. And I did the double page spread first because I knew it was going to require a lot of problem solving on it. So when I came back and I did this page, I wanted to make sure that the character was not so much on model, but it felt like you know, that it was the same character. And I had a couple of things going on with it where I had the eyes too far apart and a few things like that. And then once I went in and put in this female vampire figure here down in the background and I got that anatomy sorted out, it seemed like the next logical step was to go in and solve that. So that's what I've been doing today. All the pages that I'm going to do before this book launches are more or less done. Just doing some, you know, finishing touches. This page has got the most left to do on it, but that's not much. So I've been working on this today, and I was going to try to have another camera set up. But unfortunately, I could not get the camera charged in time. So, because I've got so many things plugged into this this MacBook that has, you know, -5 ports to it, that I have to make sure that the things I'm using, the camera I'm using, is something that can sustain its own power. So what I do is I use an old iPhone because it's more cost effective. It's got a decent camera. So that makes it a little bit easier. So once I get that together, I'll be able to do a stream where I've got my camera a little bit further away. And you'll be able to see my studio space. What's interesting right now is I'm gesturing around my studio space and you can't see me, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of crowdfunding streams. I was watching a really funny stream the other night, and they were talking about independent comics and censorship and a book that's coming out that I backed a little while ago called Snowman, A Cold Day in Hell. And there was some concern about, you know, how some of the more mature and graphic themes that are going to be in the book. And what was interesting is when those discussions come, you know, down and people start talking about it in terms of censorship, it suddenly people kind of realize what we're talking about. And as far as I'm concerned, and I don't mean the industry, but the art form, comics is one of the few art forms that has low enough of a budget to where we can actually, you know, if you've got the skill and you've got a story to tell, you've got a fair amount of freedom crowdfunding a comic. And I think that a lot of us who back these comics and back Indiegogo projects, it's not that we're looking for something that's graphic or sleazy or anything like that, although that stuff, you know, if that's what you're into, go for it. But I look at manga like Berserk, whose author and artist just passed away recently, and I think to myself, how would you define that? And why is there such a huge mainstream, audience for books that contain that kind of stuff? Well, it's because there's books for everything. And we've been having these very, what's the word I'm looking for here? I use it all the time. These very staid, these very, forgive me, flaccid works of sequential and comic book pop art. And I don't think, and of course, just like that camera charges up. Let's see what we've got here. I'm just kind of curious. Alright, that's interesting. I'll have to see if I can do something about that in a little bit. Now, I don't want that camera, thank you very much. Let's go back to this one. Suddenly the screen went blank because that other camera was sort of trying to take over. But we'll see. I'll take a look at that one in a little bit and see if we can set something up here. And you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of doing some hatching on this page to give it a little bit more value, but I want to get the depth of field. You've got a spiral staircase here. These characters have just run up it. They're about to be pursued by these bats that have been unleashed by this vampire sorceress, and I need to make sure that all of the planes work, that the staircase and the column that it's up against feels like it's in front of this figure and this ground plane, and then this sort of phantom dog feels like it's let's see what we can do here. Hang on 1 second here. Let me see if I can I'm gonna do my intro over again, and we'll see if I have enough time to get this fixed. Or actually, let me do this real quick. Hang on a second. You just stay here with the art. Ah! I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die doing this, but that's all right. Sometimes you gotta. Hopefully you can still hear me a little bit. Let's see if this works. If this works, it'll be a miracle. But I do like a challenge every now and again. Oh my god. This is gonna be bad. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Settings. Device. Height interface. Cool. I'm probably gonna make some trouble for myself, but we'll see. Now I can see what's going on with the camera. So we're back. Let's see if what we've got here. Is there a lag there? Looks like there is a little bit, but that's not too bad. All right, this is gonna be interesting here. So I've got the razor. I'm gonna try to add a camera. Look at that. There he is. Now let's do this in real time. Let's have some fun here. Options. Let's do square. Let's shrink that down just a little bit. There you go. Now you've got a tiny little terrifying corner of me working right there, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Usually I can take this and change its shape a little bit, but it's being a little bit unhappy with me right now. All right, there we go. So there you have it. So there's a link to my Indiegogo comic book in the description. And let's see if I can, without destroying things, which I probably will do, if I can adjust that camera a little bit so you can see some of this glorious background we have. There you go. So I promise I'll get this a little bit better sorted the next time I do a stream. But there you go. We'll test this camera out and see how that works. But I've been wanting to zoom out a little bit on things when I work because it helps you to get a better sense of how I'm working and what's going on with things. So here we go. Let's move this down to right there. And we'll move that to there. All right, fair enough. Sorry, I can't make that bigger, but I don't want to. I don't know what kind of state I'm in right now. So yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about what people put in comics, and then of course thinking about the comics that I read when I was a kid and why I bothered with independent comics to begin with. And it seems to me that the reason why manga has such a healthy mainstream, or I should say is such a healthy industry, is because it doesn't censor itself. And the reason why our comic book industry in America is so small is because our comic book industry not only censors itself, but even the independent comic books censor themselves. There's a list of approved subjects that you can talk about. Everything has to be approved by a very particular set of values that are not the values of everyone, just the values of tastemakers. And the problem with that is you get this very vapid stuff that plays at being edgy. But everybody's trying to be edgy in a way that won't offend anybody. And so you don't get very good stories out of that, and you don't get anything interesting. I'm pretty sure that Berserk would not fare very well if it was being evaluated for its adherence to certain ideological beliefs that are practically a religion in this day and age. And they're the kinds of things that suck the life out of art, suck the life out of creativity, like all politics does. And for me, I have no interest in reading it. So when I wasn't surprised at all when I saw the conversation about... God, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Oh, Lord. Matt Martin's Snowman, which I backed. And it got a huge boost in sales when people started talking about, whether or not certain objectionable, quote-unquote, or not even objectionable, but certain more edgy subject matter should be in it. And I think a lot of people who backed the book didn't think about, it was described as a horror comic, and that it was, about a massacre, a tale of bloody revenge. So it never dawned on me that it was going to be, a particularly soft comic book, but I didn't know how far it was going to go. And I think a lot of people, when they heard how far that comic book, they were, the artist was interested in going, were more invigorated and excited to back the book. And I just, it's so funny that when you think about it, that the independent comic book industry and independent comics are, are so, everything has become so completely sanitized. It's ridiculous that it's kind of invigorating to think of it. Now, if it's trash, if it's just trash and no one's, putting a lot of thought into it, then, it won't have a lot of legs. But for heaven's sake, I was looking at the Warren Publishing stuff. They were trying to come up with the name of the creepy and eerie sort of publishers the other night, I think. But I was looking at Bernie Wrightson's Warren Publishing stuff that, where he adapts Edgar Allan Poe, and thought if it's, and frankly, I grew up with Tim Vigil's Faust and Grips, which are, quite on the edge, to put it mildly. And it's just like, I just don't think it's, I think it's ridiculous for us to not just be telling any kind of story that you could tell in manga. Let's just put it that way. If you could tell it in manga, we ought to be telling it. And there was nothing that I was seeing in Matt Martin stuff, and to the publisher and artist and creator Ethan Van Sciver, who's publishing the book. To his credit, he was very, he understood it, because he was coming at it from the perspective of making sure that the customer doesn't, feel like they had a bait and switch happen to them. And I think, it might be reasonable to notify them and say, hey, look, there's going to be a lot of stuff in this book that you may or may not like. But he certainly, once it was sort of framed in the terms of censorship, he was kind of like, no, I'm not going to interfere with this. But that's a very strange... things have gotten so censorious and so, whatever. Gosh, it's just such a weird time for art that I think it was very reasonable for him to, be making decisions. I mean, he's running a business. His business brand is on it. So, it's his brand name, so it's it makes sense. He wasn't trying to tell some other, publisher how to run their business. It's his publishing house, and the success of that book has a lot to do with Matt's fantastic art, of course, but, Ethan was promoting it, a lot, and so I can understand his concern there. But, as somebody who backed the book, I have to say that I was like kind of, I don't want to say relieved, but I kind of just feel like, I don't know. It's a hard way to put it. I don't want to buy junk, and I want to buy stuff, and I want to buy artwork that feels like it's alive. And frankly, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of room in CG, in Comicsgate, for people to do some more edgy stuff and to really push the envelope a little bit. If they've got, the ideas, if they've got the passion to do so, and it's not just... Because this is the thing. I mean, it's like when you see people who don't swear and don't use profanity trying to swear, and it just sounds embarrassing. You just think, God, are you trying to sound tough? Are you trying to sound older and that kind of thing? Like, it just seems very juvenile, very middle school. It's the same thing when people try to do horror or violence. I mean, try painting... people can sort of get away with violence, and being terrible at it, but I found that when it comes to artwork depicting sex or human sexuality or whatever, or I should say sexuality because that's a whole different, conversation. But when you see people who are depicting some of those themes in their work, it looks, if it doesn't work, it just looks stupid. So there's a hell of a lot of risk in it. And when you see, manga works, I think those artists are much more comfortable with addressing those things as a theme. But I just don't think that if you label what it is, I think the audience can handle it. I mean, heavens knows that video games don't seem to worry nearly as much, and manga, which a lot of kids are reading, and the internet certainly doesn't care. So, something to think about. But I don't want everything, in comics to be, suddenly, overly graphic for the sake of being graphic. That doesn't have any interest for me, but I don't want them as a rule to be PG-13. That's great, but, the people who are buying comics, the people who are certainly buying comics in CG are not the audience that's just being denigrated all the time are older. So maybe, and I don't think, again, teenagers must look at American comics. I mean, they look like after-school specials, for those of you old enough to remember what those are. I mean, they're so lame. I mean, it's almost like there's a quality to American comic books that sounds like a comforting trip to your middle school counselor. You're experiencing all of these changes in your life right now, and it's a very tough time. It's like, yeah, sure, but does Spider-Man have to be going to a middle school counselor? I mean, he's in high school or college, depending on... I liked Peter Parker, frankly, when he was married and an adult in the David Michelinie run with Todd McFarlane, but that's besides the point. I mean, I feel like there's something weirdly condescending and kind of creepy about the audience they're trying to talk to and the way they're trying to talk to them. And, mainstream publishers. And these are people who, one, if they're, in actual entertainment, they're not watching or reading any of this stuff. They're rolling their eyes these days. And it's almost like making artwork that's about what, what you... your fantasy of what you would say to your middle school self. And if you're in your 30s and that's what you're into, my God, get out of middle school. Leave that stuff behind. Write something that, for an adult audience. I mean, that's one of the big things I've been thinking about a lot lately is when I'm writing this story, this is just pure entertainment. That's what this is going to be. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be exciting, but it's not going to be an attempt to, comfort Arrested Development, children. It's not what I'm, or I should say Arrested Development adults who need to be comforted by a middle school counselor, but people with kids, people who've seen things, people who've seen horror, people who live in this world that we're living in and have actually, dealt with it. There was this time when, people would talk about when they were younger how hard things were, and an older person would say to them, yeah, well, we all go through stuff like this, and tell them actually serious things that people go through. And now it's almost like, the artwork is telling us, oh, it's never been as hard as it's been, now, which is ludicrous, even with everything that's going on. So, I don't know, I want artwork to deal with horror because, for someone like myself, there was nothing that I ever read in a comic book that was more horrifying than some of the stuff I've experienced as a kid when I was young. And I can't fathom for the life of me like how, and all this stuff about if you experience horrifying things, you can't handle them is ludicrous. If you experience horrifying things, you absolutely can handle it. Doesn't mean you need to go and seek out things that, you're not comfortable with. It just means that that's one of the greatest myths in the world. I worked as a visual arts professor for, 18 years? And during that time, I routinely had students create violent and disturbing artwork, some of which were them illustrating things that were complete fantasy. That, they've never experienced them, but maybe they've seen them in a horror movie, or they thought it just could be so cool to show violence. And they were things I had actually witnessed in my life. And I never, sat back and said, oh my God, I'm sorry, I have to leave the room. I can't handle this because this is something that happened to me. Because that's not how I was, that's not what the expectations of life were that were given to me. It's for me to deal with that stuff and then to critique it on its own merits, not based on my own personal experience and thinking that, if I've experienced something, no one can make art. I can't see any artwork about it. Because how the hell would you be a teacher if that was the case? It wouldn't work. Period. And, art is not for lightweights. That's for sure. Art's not for lightweights, learning isn't for lightweights, and life is certainly not for lightweights. So, yeah. When I saw what was going on in Matthew Martin's comic, or when I see Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, or The Devil's Backbone for that matter, I'm seeing things that are not alien concepts to me, certainly as metaphor, but as brutality. And if somebody's interested in understanding what I think, kids are let's put it this way. Not every kid is exposed to these kinds of things, but some kids are. Watch The Devil's Backbone by Guillermo del Toro and let me know what you think in the comments. That's an R-rated movie that earns its R by talking about things that kids in this orphanage are experiencing during the Spanish Civil War. And, at the start of the Spanish Civil War. And Pan's Labyrinth, the follow-up, shows more of the same. It even shows what happens to two of the kids in the Devil's Backbone. But I encountered characters that were a lot like some of the characters in terms of, certain things, like the characters in that story. And I can't, for the life of me, think that you could have a vital art form or a vital industry that doesn't include those kinds of things in it. When I look around, my studio space, which you can see here, my studio corner, it's filled with, artifacts and, statues and figurines and things like that that are works of horror. They're works of it's filled with a lot of other stuff too, but, The Crow with I forget who the director's name is, I'm blanking on it, but The Crow starring Brandon Lee, which is based on the comic book of the same name, dealt with some really heavy stuff. And that movie was pretty horrific. Would that even be written today? I don't know. It would certainly be relaunched. And, postmodernized, but that's about it. But it's, you know, it's not going to come out of intellectual circles. It's going to come out of pulp circles and comic circles. And that's, I mean, that's what this book's about. If anybody wants to know what my book is about and what reading my book is going to be like, if you back it, it's going to be about what independent comic books can be, artistically, creatively. They can be beautiful, they can be quirky, they can have, you know, everything in them. You'll realize you're reading and you crowdfunded an independent comic book when you back this book and you receive it. That's for sure. And it'll be a work of art. And that's what you're seeing right here. You're seeing someone, an artist, make a work of art. And frankly, that's what I see when I see Matthew Martin stuff. I see someone who's trying to make a work of art. And I would rather see somebody trying to make a work of art than try to get, you know, pats on the back for having the right, you know, political opinions or the right attitudes. It just does nothing for me. And frankly, that's nothing I would ever teach. I just think I have no interest in it. Because I think that artists need to get good. They need to, I don't want to say they need to all express themselves. They need to learn perspective. They need to learn drawing. They need to actually do things and gain skills. However, I think that if you don't have a voice as an artist and your voice is driven by the consensus of you know, what everybody thinks is the right attitude to have in whatever, you know, time period you're living in, then you know, you're missing out, and you're probably not an artist. Now, that's not to say that doing things that are, you know, deliberately, like, oh, look, I'm doing something that's deliberately ugly or whatever. To me, that's just, it's so played. It's like people deliberately trying to make something that's anti-aesthetic for the sake of being anti-aesthetic. It's like, congratulations. You get a experience that's not aesthetic when you wake up and you just put a piece of paper out there saying, oh, look, I made my figure so ugly and anatomically incorrect. Oh, okay, maybe you're just not good. And we know the difference, by the way. This is not a call for things having to be totally realistic, but they do have to be aesthetic and they do have to be interesting. And I think a lot of work is given a pass that's completely unskilled or is not even trying to be skilled, because I think that's what second-raters love. People who aren't skilled as artists and become art bureaucrats or taste makers, they hate skilled people. They hate people with that creative spark. I mean, it's a sad reality, but it's true. Some of the most unskilled and in some cases, you know, powerful people in the arts have the least amount of talent and a disproportionate amount of resentment for people with talent. And you can't get much done in that kind of environment. You can't. If you cannot acknowledge someone's superior skill or superior ability, and you're in a position to determine who gets opportunities, it's the worst thing for any creative environment. And unfortunately, that expression is true. That A people hire other A people, and B people hire other B people or C people, because they don't even understand what an A person is in terms of their work ethic, which an A person is always looking to be around people who challenge them and are better, and B people are always looking to be around people who they feel smarter than, which is so ridiculous and so horrendous. So look for the environments where you're seeing a lot of really skilled people kind of come together. And that's where the A people are. Look for environments where everyone has an opinion on everybody else's, right to make certain kinds of work, and that's where all of your C people are. It's where all your unskilled people are. And just get out of there. And unfortunately, this is the funny thing. I would say that A people get out of there, but, don't be too hopeful. Because these people, when they do get out of there, they get followed. Because, again, resentful people just cannot deal with you being successful. It drives them crazy. And so it's not worth it. Like, it's weird, but it's completely not worth it to spend any time in those kinds of situations as an artist. And I think most of us understand when we look at manga what a cutthroat, industry it is. And I'm not saying that, the American industry has to be manga. But what I will say is, manga will die as an art form the second that you start to see mediocre people being, heralded as, oh, this person's redefining manga and they're making it interesting. Look, it's shit. Sorry, I'm feeling a little loopy today and a little annoyed. But not in a bad way, but just when you're doing this kind of stuff, you have to have a little bit of piss and vinegar in you, or you're never even going to get up and go to your drawing board. And I don't have any doubt it's going to happen in manga at some point, because we had a really good run when our comics were, being done by working class people, and when I say working class, I don't mean that in a Marxist way. I hate that stuff. But they were done by immigrants and people coming here who were not making art, they were trying to sell comic books. Manga has that attitude right now. But it's only a matter of time before unskilled bureaucrats come into any successful environment and try to manage it. I said this one time, not long ago, that the greatest threat to any creative environment is not what people think it is. It's the privileged poser. That's the greatest threat. Because those people they have no imagination, and they have a desire to control people who do, and to keep them down. So it's just not worth it. And that is the American comic book industry in a nutshell. And so people have to create alternatives. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, in a lot of ways, for us to go into this zone where we're complaining and we're talking about what other people should do for their work. That goes for independent artists. It shouldn't matter to us what big corporations do with their artwork. It should matter to us what we do with our artwork. And if you don't like what's on the movie screen, you can make a movie. You have the equipment to make a movie. You have more opportunity to make a movie now and get it out there than any filmmaker in history has. So what are you going to do? You going to waste your time complaining about what somebody else is doing? The easiest genre and most cost-effective genre and one of the most popular genres of all time that almost anybody can do because it doesn't require stars. Jason Blum figured this out. Is horror. That's what Universal Studios was built on. There's so many books, novels, characters, creations that are copyright free. Learn how to make a movie by practicing making films. Make something great. Don't complain about the stuff you don't like. I buy old comics and I buy independent crowdfunded comics right now. If I see something good, I buy manga as well. If I see something good, I'll buy it. But I'm not interested in making work for corporations that are going to stifle creativity, and I'm not interested in making work for people who expect to have it for free. Neither one of those interests me. I'm interested in my audience, the people who back and support Shanth Enjeti Art. Speaking of which, if you have not signed up for my email list, the link is in the description for my new Indiegogo project, which is the one you're looking at right here. I've already funded and fulfilled 2 Indiegogo projects, so I know what I'm doing. And if you're interested in a really cool comic book, check this out. It'll be great. Because I'm drawing it and painting it and writing it, so it'll be interesting. And if you don't like it, and you buy the book, let me know. Because if you're a customer and you support my work, I want to hear what you have to say. It's kind of one of those things. And I will absolutely try to work on it, but you'll get your money's worth no matter what, because this artwork right here is going to be great. Just is what it is. It'll be worth the cover price based on the art alone, but I care about the story, and I guarantee you that, yeah, it'll be interesting. It's not going to be something boring that you're going to get from the two corporate comic companies. I mean, there's already, like, when I think about it, and it's not even, you know, it's not even edgy stuff, it's just stuff they can't do. But there's already so much stuff in this book that you'd never see the two companies talk about. The big two companies and frankly, mainstream entertainment. It's because, yeah, the list of things they have an adverse reaction to is so long that to do anything that's kind of thought-provoking is a piece of cake, because they've left so much open. They hate heroes. They hate beauty. Let's just go down the list. You know, it's not hard to do something that's more interesting than them, because you can't fall out of the basement. I mean, my goodness. When I think about the works of Mobius and the artists I read when I was coming up, you know, as a kid, when I was growing up and trying to, you know, I don't know, I was just getting into comics, and I was a big fan of comics. It's like almost an unrecognizable art form, American comics, than it was when I was there. And it's not because comics needed to mature and, you know, oh my gosh, you know, those comic book fans just, they can't let go. It's like, it's like a leech telling something that they're sucking the blood out of that they can't let go. It's a little bit of projection. It's easy for people to be disgusted when you come over to their house and you start trashing the place. You shouldn't be shocked that you're less upset about it than they are. It's their place. It's such a strange thing. And people who don't care about comics being disinterested in the fact that people who do care about comics don't like what's going on in it, which is to say, terrible writing, absolutely ridiculously, absurdly bad artwork. And deliberately so. Like, very little effort being put into it. I mean, look at the artist editions and things like that coming out from IDW or any of that stuff. I mean, it's neither imaginative nor aesthetic, a lot of the stuff you're seeing. And that is coming together. That's looking good. This dog is based off of a cane corso, and I just love the aesthetic of them. I love the way they run, and I'm really excited with how it's coming out. So that's nice to see. That's a relief. But yeah, I want to see good stuff, and manga doesn't have that issue at all. No pun intended. Manga has just everything going for it, and none of the garbage that's going on in American comics. I mean, I don't know, like, when someone's looking at Attack on Titan, and I would say spoiler alert, but I don't care, the lead character's mother is being eaten by a Goya-esque giant. I don't know. Should we not read that? Or should we not? I mean, like, that's selling. Young people are buying that and getting into it because they understand what life... They are curious about it, and they have a subconscious kind of evolutionary understanding of that life can be like that. That you can lose things. and that your whole life can be turned upside down. And some people know it. And it's funny, they're always the people who go around talking about how other people are closed-minded and don't want to like deal with things, that are the worst at dealing with stuff. It's just terrible. I've actually never really said that, at least in terms of that basic process of, oh, other people just cannot deal with this or that. I think it's more like, how do I word it? I view this as, see if that works there. It's all about getting that hatching where I need it to be. For me, it's always about pointing out the fact that people are always telling, there's a certain kind of person, and I've met a lot of them, whose whole shtick is to tell other people to get out of their comfort zone, but what they really mean is for you to climb into theirs. And if people are uncomfortable with my work, I don't need to go and seek them out, or they don't like my work. I don't need to go and seek them out and say, you need to like my work. That's on you. No, actually, I don't. I absolutely don't need to like your work. Thank you very much for making work I don't care about. And it's funny because if you don't care about my work, then I have to, accept the fact that you're not going to be an audience member. But I've got enough people who've been interested in my work. I feel very grateful for that, but I've worked really hard for that. I mean, at the very least, people know that when they back one of my projects, they're going to get a collection of solid work. It's going to be printed well. And it's going to be something that is hopefully worth the cost, and they understand that they're supporting an independent artist. I don't think I have that same level of sympathy for people who work for corporate, entities, putting out work and then them lecturing me on stuff. That's just not my bag. And it's, even besides all that, besides all that dumb stuff, make good stuff. There's a whole, world of there's a whole world of audience members. I was looking at Universal Studios Hollywood Horror Nights, or Halloween Horror Nights, and I just thought to myself, this is the audience I know. This is, like, there's people going there, there's, haunted houses and haunted mazes of people throwing heads around, and I watched The Haunting of Hill House, which I thought was a masterpiece. I don't know, if you're going to see a lot more of those, but The Haunting of Hill House is a modern classic. That adaptation is a work of art completely in its own, on its own. It's like The Shining, the book Shining versus the movie. And, it's extraordinary. And that has everything. It has the full human experience. And of course you're going to get, idiots. Sorry, I gotta have an opinion sometimes. Saying, oh, well, why that ending doesn't make any sense. If you haven't lived a life, and if you don't understand the complexities of, family, and you think that everything needs to have a dark ending just because that you live in a myopic, intellectual universe of, frankly, of thinking that it's almost kind of funny. Whenever I read a story about characters who've gone through a very tough experience, it's very difficult for an immature audience to understand that people can go through an experience and get better and come out the other end in better shape. So it's almost like they don't understand how that works. Like, they think that a dark story has to be dark all the way through, and a happy story or a positive story has to be positive all the way through. So they're kind of at a loss when they see something that's dark and scary and it doesn't stay dark and scary. Really strange. And so now we're getting that darkness into it. That value. And it's coming together. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Good to see you. Throwing in some washes and some lines. And talking insanity, as I often do, Reagan Lodge. How are you doing? Good to see you. There we go. Oh my god. Marathon runner. 6-hour live stream. Enjoy that dinner. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Much appreciated. Much love, brother. That's great. Yeah, I am. I really want to make this Cane Corso, demon creature have its full sense of weight, and so that's one of the things I've been working on with it. And yeah, thanks. I'm glad you that's coming across. I mean, my whole thing about this stuff is, I think about 80s creature design, and I think about things and creatures like the stop motion terror dogs from Ghostbusters, the Hound of the Baskervilles, King Kong, definitely. And I just love that stuff. American Werewolf, that's the stuff I'm into. But 6 hours is a mid-sized show for me. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm working up to that. I think I'm going to have to start, having longer streams because, it gives people more time to kind of get in there and see where things are going and, got to be committed to it. That's awesome. Well, I hope you're giving yourself a good dinner after that long of a stream. I mean, I know it's not long compared to the 8 to 10 hours, but yeah, make sure you take care of yourself and get yourself something good to eat. Don't eat anything that I would eat. It'd be terrible for you. I'd say, hey, have a giant funnel cake on me, but I don't know if that's good for anybody. Oh, thanks. I will appear on any YouTube channels that will have me to promote it. That's the way I'm going to go for it. I mean, honestly, whatever I've got to do. I mean, I think my friend Michael, who's got a channel called The Choice Voice, said he was open to it. But anybody wants to have me on their channel to promote it, I'm there. I will schedule a time and I will be there. So yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to launch it, and grateful for anybody and everybody's support and interest in the project, because there's a lot of great stuff out there right now. A lot of great stuff. And a lot of great YouTubers out there too, by the way, and people who are, promoting people's work. And I mean, it's a really great, environment to be in creatively, I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I'm game. Yeah, hit me up. Be happy to do that. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You just let me know. Yeah, happy to talk about that stuff, and happy to talk about, anything, art related, comic related, horror related, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I really think that this is probably one of the most enjoyable communities of artists and creators I've been around. And so, yeah, happy to do it. Just let me know. If you go to my website, or you can contact me on Instagram, one or the other. But if you go to my website, shanthengetiart.com, which I finally have started to update, there's even a contact form there. But if you're, I think that I follow you on Instagram, I'm pretty sure. So if I do, if I don't, I will. Yeah, contact me through there. And happy to set something up. There we go. See if I can move that camera down a little bit, so it's a little easier to see. There we go. A little bit of a zoom going on, and now you can kind of see that hatching line work a little bit better. But yeah, Mythophoric character design and all that stuff, you know, came out of all the stuff I was reading on Joseph Campbell, and just, you know, getting into mythology and came up with that, you know, in my 20s, and I'm sure it's influencing a lot of the stuff I do. You know, the design sensibility, it's always there. And you know, and then there's the physical aspect of it. You know, there's the raw drawing aspect. So I always try to make sure that the intellectual is kind of in the back a little bit, but it becomes kind of more intuition. But yeah, that was a huge part. That came from me studying a lot of amazing artists. You know, I mean, that was a huge part of it. You know, I was just looking at, oh gosh, you know, Mobius, Aiko Ishioka, you know, all of these brilliant designers and artists, and, you know, kind of looking for those common themes. But I'm learning new stuff all the time. I think I've almost learned you know, an ocean worth of stuff since I even, you know, came up with that stuff. So it's wild, you know, really wild stuff. But yeah, happy to be on that channel. Be great to be on your channel. Like I said, I mean, it's anywhere and everywhere. That's gonna be, you know, my goal. Anybody who's interested in promoting the work and talking to me about the work, that's where I'm gonna be. That's my whole, you know, focus going forward. And I might add, I'm glad to hear that it was, you know, helpful to you. That's great to hear. I love hearing, you know, that any of the things that I've worked on and developed and done were positive for people. It's always a great feeling. Yep, Young and Jordan Peterson. Oh, nice, excellent. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Peterson's another one of those people, you know, who I had said on one post I did on my Tell Forward blog way back when. I said, someone had asked me, they said, I'd written a big thing on Joseph Campbell and kind of looking at some of the cases and things that were kind of made against him by Brendan Gill and other people, and which I think were largely just not unlike what Jordan Peterson's kind of gone through. And someone asked me, this was of course before Jordan Peterson was on the scene, someone had written a comment, I think an academic if I'm not mistaken, and said, where do you think the next Joseph Campbell's coming from? And I said, I think the next Joseph Campbell is going to come from, you know, the sciences. It's going to be less from, you know, mythology and more from something, you know, in like psychology and the study of psychology and science. And sure enough, you know, I mean, I'm not saying I predicted whatever, you know, I didn't, but I just knew there would be another person, and it's practically in the exact same time frame that these things tend to happen in. But yeah, Peterson's work was huge for me, you know, and just, you know, even talking to my kids and, you know, talking to my son about 12 Rules for Life, which is great. I used to listen to that on my drive back and forth from work. Really amazing mind. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's smart people. You know, when I see somebody who's brilliant and has a good head on their shoulders, I'm always like, okay, you know, that makes sense. And one of those people that I think anybody who is looking to try to sort things out for themselves would be a good person. I had this really funny experience, and I remember calling my friend up about it, where I was getting my car repaired at this at the auto shop up the road that we're friends with the owners. I've known them forever. They're great people, and I had to go in there because I had picked up a nail in my car in the wheel, and I was just really frustrated by it. And the guy, I mean, I would say he's a young man, but young to me, he probably might have been in his late 20s. You know, he pulled my car around just to make sure that the patch held on my tire because he knew I was going to be commuting far. And I guess I had I guess I had Jordan Peterson, a CD of one of his lectures in the car. And the guy pulled around, he got out of the car and he looked at me and he went, Jordan Peterson, man. And I said, yeah. He goes, right on. It was just the one of the funniest little interactions I think I've ever had. Yeah, it was it's just one of those things. But you know, for me, it's also kind of funny because the on the art making end of things, there's a lot of, on the personal sort of, you know, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, aspect of it, you've got that one side of it. And then on the other aspect of it, there's the artistic side of it, which is, you know, the pulp stuff that I like, and, you know, the kind of idiosyncratic, like, American Werewolf in London and all that stuff. And it's just, yeah, I love it all. Like, I like having deep conversations, and I like laughing my head off. And I think if there's one thing I've learned in the last couple of years is that I need more laughter in my life. And I have made, and that sounds crazy, but some people have accused me, and I say this in tongue-in-cheek, but of being able to make people laugh, which is nice. But I really cannot overstate how much I personally appreciate people making me laugh. It's great to be funny, but it is gold to be made to laugh. So yeah, that's definitely something I appreciate. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah. It's funny that just sort of that hit me. That was so. Here's a story for you that's tied to the place where I get my car fixed. So there was a gentleman from my hometown, and I think I have the portrait posted on my Instagram somewhere. But there was a gentleman from my hometown named who was First Sergeant Andrew McKenna, and he was killed in Afghanistan. Actually, 10 years, practically to the month of, you know, his younger brother, 10 years after that. And I didn't know his parents, but it just sort of dawned on me. I felt sort of, you know, compelled to. I knew when I heard about this that I was going to try to get my skills up to paint a portrait of him. And fortunately, the person who owns the one of the people who owns the place I get our car repaired at, she knew his mom and was friends with his parents. And so I decided that it was very fortuitous, because I basically decided I was going to do a portrait of Andrew, and I was going to I could run it by her, and she could let me know, you know, if it worked for her. And probably it's probably the best thing. It's probably the thing I put the most heart into and soul into, and his mom liked it, so that was huge. And yeah, it's one of those things to where I think we could probably do a much better job caring about each other and taking care of each other. And yeah, I've been thinking about, I always think about him, and they had this sort of commemorative bottle opener that they have that's out of a giant shell, and they I don't want to dox, you know, whatever, but the woman who's my friend at the auto dealership asked me if I would like to have one, because they, you know, gave them out to people, and so I keep it. It's right in front of me. I can see it right now, but it comes in a little wooden box with his portrait, you know, burned into it. And I think about him. It's directly in my line of sight, and I always think about the fact that the artwork that I make and the things that I do, I'm able to do them, and I'm able to make them in a free society because of other people's work, other people's sacrifice. And it's, you know, I taught college for 18 years, and I always asked, almost every semester I asked people if they could tell me what Article 1 of the Constitution of the United States is, because I heard a lot of people talk politics, but most people didn't even understand the basics of how this country is set up and how it works. And I think that it's just so important to care for people in your community, and it's so important. Like, if you've got skill, and it's a very small thing to, and I hope, you know, I hope to God it's good. You know, I don't. I always fear if I look back at it, I'll think I didn't do a good enough job. But I think a lot about. I just think a lot about that's what the work is there for. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what we're there for. It's like entertainment, but it's also just, you know. Yeah. It absolutely does. It's one of the reasons why I get so much strength from the Stoic philosophers. Like, I read a lot of Epictetus's quotes, and you know, a Greek slave came to be a philosopher, and Marcus Aurelius is another person I listen to. But the Stoic philosophers have been really big for me, and you know, anybody who's had experiences, you know, that you know, the experiences that frankly give you empathy, you know, actually I don't know what gives you empathy, to be honest, but I've experienced enough things to understand and appreciate the value of us caring for one another, you know, and that's what's fun. Yeah, it absolutely is. It's that C.S. Lewis quote, who's another one of my sort of spiritual teachers, who said friendship, like, you know, I forget the exact quote, but it's like, friendship, like, you know, art and music or whatever, is not necessary for survival, but those are the things that make give survival its value. And so, yeah, I really sort of think that one of my responsibilities as an artist is, you know, to produce the best escapism I can, and you know, try to, I don't know, just try to really appreciate what I have, and appreciate, you know, the people around me. I don't think I've ever looked at a kind thing that I've done for anybody. Those are never the things I regret, ever. So I just try to do them every chance I get, you know? And it's like, they're not, you know, they're not meaningless things to me. It's just amazing. Like, when I pack up books and I mail them to people, I'm always thinking someone's going to open this, and, you know, is the tape on right, and is the head sketch I did for that person, you know, good enough, and oh, that's great. Yeah, and, you know, I love C.S. Lewis. Oh, nice. Wow, that's a heck of a good list. You know, it's makes me want to go to, and they just recently closed it after all that time, but it makes me want to go to the Eagle and Child and talk story. Do you know what I mean? In a lot of ways, I think that's what YouTube has the ability to be, you know, is that. And I listened to one of the things I also had in my car to listen to when I was commuting, because I used to commute 2 hours up and 2 hours back to work. And I had C.S. Lewis's Beyond Personality, which I just got off of YouTube because it was on YouTube, and I would just listen to that. And then there was one that was The Poison of Subjectivism. I used to listen to that a lot, and it gave me it gave me a huge context for what I was doing. But yeah, C.S. Lewis. I absolutely love C.S. Lewis. There's a great pseudo-documentary video, if you haven't seen it yet. It's great to put in with all the other great stuff out there. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's called, I think it's called Narnia's Lost Poet. And it's a really good documentary on C.S. Lewis, and talks about his life, and talks about his, you know, his various experiences, and his journey to faith, and his, you know, the effect that, you know, various experiences he had. And you realize that those, you know, gosh, they were just such amazing people. You know, that and the BBC authors in their own words on Tolkien, I think, are just great watches, because you get to see Tolkien walking around, you know, campus, and, talking about Lord of the Rings, and you see all that stuff. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it. If you have trouble tracking it down, just send me a message on Instagram or whatever, and I'll see if I can get a hold of it for you, because it's fantastic. It's really great. And it's out there, but it's it's like out on the ether somewhere. But it's for a Tolkien fan, it's great. It's like the authors in their own words. It's really great to see Tolkien writing in Elvish, and I saw someone do a high, they must have got it from the original source in the BBC archives, but they had a high resolution of Tolkien writing in Elvish, and it's just so incredible to see the person who created these worlds in this language writing in it, with a little nib pen. It's incredible, or fountain pen. It's amazing. I love that stuff. I huge fan of that stuff. It's an incredible. It's just an incredible resource to have, and the same thing with books. I could listen to, every now and again, I think I understand how smart people like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were, and then I read something new and I realize I have no idea. I'm too dumb to understand how smart people like that are. It's amazing to me. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's cool stuff. It's really cool stuff. I used to really just admire storytellers who had a really solid grasp on art, history, mythology. Tolkien doing his own translation of Beowulf and things like that just amaze me. But and the same thing goes with comic book artists and the brushwork that they do and little things like that. I just love to watch. There we go. It's getting there. It's getting there. Let's see here. There we go. So it's starting to get the form in there a little bit. I've got some, reference that I'm using right now, but it's, various reference of Cane Corso, just running and jumping, and just the musculature and the mass on them is amazing. You know what? I haven't read that yet. Let me see. Oh, whoops. I missed a couple of things here. Hang on a second. Yeah, it's going to be terrible. Yeah, Amazon's going to ruin it. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, I'm actually really interested. I haven't read the Space Trilogy yet, but I'm really curious to read it. I think that could be awesome. Oh, I just realized something. I've never done this before. Let me see here. There we go. I'm going to start that. So we'll see how that works. But that's awesome. There you go. This is my first time I think I've added something to the broadcast. So there you go. But I feel like now that image is on top of it, I want it to be the other way around. Hang on a second here. I'm going to move myself. That's a little bit better. There we go. Yeah, I definitely... Let me see here. So it's more chilling. Oh, yeah, that's wild. Yeah. And H.P. Lovecraft, because I live in Rhode Island, this is, obviously H.P. Lovecraft's stomping ground. And Lovecraft is, another just incredible creative mind. I was listening to the audiobook of my first Lovecraft book that really got to me and really affected me, which was The Thing on the Doorstep. And since I first read it, I've read other Lovecraft stuff, and I've seen how it ties together, and it all ties in, And I'd say that my favorite author is still, and it may be this case forever, I don't know, just in terms of I just love it, is Arthur Conan Doyle. I love The Lost World, and I love Sherlock Holmes. I love The Hound of the Baskervilles is obviously my favorite, which I'm kind of paying homage to here. But yeah, Lovecraft is up there. He's my favorite. He's my favorite horror writer for sure. I just think that the way that the perspective that he brought to things and at some point I'm going to have to do a Lovecraft stream. But the perspective that he brought to certain things is so completely alien to me, but it helped me to understand a certain type of thought process, if that makes any kind of sense. I think that for anybody wanting to understand, just the depths of what a person who lives in a constant state of horror, is like, Lovecraft gives you access to that, and I actually did an edit of a documentary on Lovecraft because I just thought there was a lot of fat in the documentary, and I just did it for my own personal use, but I felt like there was just a lot of meandering in it, and I kind of broke it down, and it talks about what a tortured life that he lived and all that stuff, and I just found it really fascinating, and I'm not totally up on the whole auteur theory of creativity where it's all about the biography of the person, because I think the fiction is rich in and of itself. But this did a really good job of balancing those two things. Oh yeah, Doyle is Robert E. Howard. I haven't read any Howard, so you've got me beat there. And Howard is one of the favorite authors of my studio brother, my artist brother Nick Janeshake. So that's something I really. It's funny. I'm into Frazetta and I haven't read Howard. I don't know how I justify that. It's one of those things. I got to catch up on my reading, but I had and I still have, but dyslexia, and one of the great things for me has been, and even though I'll never probably experience it the way that like my wife is an incredible reader. She just reads books, and so is my best friend. He's my wife is my best friend, but my bro is an amazing reader as well. And I can appreciate the fact that I'm never going to understand what it's like to just get lost in a book, and audiobooks have just given me so much. And I love listening to audiobooks. They transport me, and so I got to get Robert E. Howard on there. So I've been playing catch-up for the last... Gosh, I want to say I've been playing catch-up for the last... Really in earnest, probably... nonfiction for the last 18 years to 20 years. Well, more like 18. And then with fiction, it's really been in the last 8 years I've been trying to catch up on my fiction. So I'm behind, but I'm just trying to catch up right now. And Robert E. Howard is definitely on that list because I feel like that's, as Peterson would say, that's a canonical work in terms of fantasy adventure and with elements of kind of horror as well. So yeah, I want to catch up with that for sure. I'm definitely a bit behind on it. No, I haven't. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so love Amano's work. I have the two giant, volumes of the Final Fantasy artwork. I love Vampire Hunter D, and with Warhammer 40k. Never played Warhammer 40k, but I love Warhammer 40k in this very particular way. The guy who introduced me to comics, who introduced me to the first edition Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that came out in the early 80s, and to Grips by Tim Vigil and Todd McFarlane and all those artists. His one of his big passions was painting Warhammer miniatures. And so he used to give me Warhammer miniatures. I think it was the Space Marines, with the early ones with the big gauntlets and the beakies. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And so I used to paint them and really be into it. And so I have all these really positive memories of Warhammer and those miniatures. And believe it or not, I was terrible at painting them. He was better than me. Painting miniatures is like its own art form. But I'm really thinking about buying those just to have for my little setup here and just to bring positive vibes. I'm thinking about getting either the Bandai or the McFarlane release of those figures because I love them so much. And frankly, if I if I had, the opportunity to, I would love to commission him to paint one, because I think that'd be a great things coming full circle. Yeah, oh, I know, right? He was a cool dude. I mean, he gave me comics. Shadow of the Torture, oh, that's cool. Oh, very cool. I have to check that out. Yeah, that's kind of more my tech. I like the I kind of like the Vampire Hunter D, like almost like a gothic sort of futurism. I think is really cool. I loved I actually even edited it all together, but the fan movie that came out for Warhammer, I watched that with my son because he likes to 3D model in Maya, and just really good at 3D modeling. He's like 15 and he's doing coding for games and into aircraft and things like that. Just a really brilliant kid. And the thing about it is that I saw that, what's it called? It starts with an A. I forget what it's called. Like, shoot, how can I be blanking on this? But it was done in a couple of parts, and it was so incredibly beautiful, and I thought the visuals were great in it. And so yeah, I think Warhammer is I think I actually did I have a Vimeo for Shanth Enjeti Art. It's where I usually put my Indiegogo trailers, and I think it may be public, but I took one of the early cover art images from Warhammer that I loved as a kid, and I just did some color adjusts to push the perspective and did a little video transition of what I did on it. So yeah, Warhammer was definitely something that had a huge artistic impact on me as a kid. Those early RPG art things like that, and Shadowrun, which the first edition of Shadowrun I was super into. Loved the idea of Street Samurai and that whole thing. Very cool, that world. Yes, yeah. Yes. Yeah, I love that stuff. I think that's why I really loved Travis Chare's work on the Metabarons. I think that the Weapons of the Metabaron aesthetic that he did for that was great and really beautiful, and was a huge influence on me. It was really great. And I remember on a stream, I think it was on one of the art auctions, when Malin accidentally doxed his email address, that I couldn't resist. I really tried to fight the urge, but I sent him a PDF, which he probably already has all that stuff, but I sent him a PDF of that from just grabs from Travis Chare's website of his artwork from the Arms of the Metabaron, because I just think that stuff is beautiful, and I know John's a big fan of Travis's work, as I am, and Travis has definitely been an influence on me. Probably more Mobius, but Travis is a genius. Yeah, so great, so operatic. I love the Incal. Like, I got exposed to Mobius when I was in college and became a huge Mobius fan. Just Arzak was pretty much drove my comic art, and is one of those foundational works. I mean, there's basically, it's funny, there's Todd McFarlane's run on Hulk from 340 to 345. Those issues are just these huge things on me. There's Tim Vigil's Grips, and certainly Faust a little bit, but Grips had a huge impact. Dave Stevens' The Rocketeer had a huge impact. But without a doubt, Mobius's Arzak work, and the Incal, and gosh, what was the other ones? There were a whole bunch of, everything Mobius did. There was a book called Fusions that had his Willow concept art in it from 1988's Willow, and that just was another thing that hit me big time. So when you see that stuff, the latest influence, or the influence that I've only had probably for the last 10 years as my studio mate, had just really got me to appreciate it, was Frazetta. And you can see that stuff. You can see Mobius's panel breaks in my stuff a lot. Like when you see me do, let me see if I can make this work without bumping into too many things, but when you see me do edges like that, that's a lot of what I love about Mobius, just having a panel break that becomes a wing like that. It's like I realized I took it away before it could even focus. But having things like that is totally, result of Mobius's influence. And then, you can see, where Mobius, meets Frazetta. in a lot of my stuff. You know, it's like, oh yeah, Willow is just great, and I think, you know, Val Kilmer was fantastic in that. But you can see, I mean, it's like Lovecraft, Mobius, Willow. Oh, thanks, I appreciate it, Reagan Lodge. Much appreciated, respect. I you know, I want it to be great for people when I'm working on this stuff, and I want the characters, you know, to have the kind of, you know, depth and you know, I just want people to be transported and really just enjoy their time when they're looking at the book, because that's what the great artwork that I was into did for me. And I'm going to try to keep doing, you know, every single one of these pages is going to be, you know, hopefully the you know, my goal is the best page, you know, that I've done. You know, that's my goal. And you know, I've got a lot of people who are, it's really nice to be in an environment where I'm looking at and seeing a lot of artwork by people I admire who are really pushing the envelope. I think the stuff I saw on Ethan's stream the other night, which was Matt Martin stuff for Snowman, which, you know, I backed that with, you know, the original promotional images, and I liked it so much I actually you know, edited the trailer to Alden Nova's Medicine Man, and sent that to Ethan, and I just thought it was a really good fit for the comic. But Matt Martin's brushwork on that is beautiful, really beautiful. And so that, you know, whenever I see things like that, you know, and same thing goes with Cyberfrog or you know, any of the other books, and some of the stuff Andy Smith is doing too on First Man, it just gets me excited to go to my board, you know. And then Kenneth Roquefort's Groken looks beautiful. I was just checking the Indiegogo page out just to see how the progress is going on it, and looking forward to getting that too. Just so much good stuff being done. I mean, I feel like if I start listing, I'm going to leave something out that I really like. So, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff, but it's a wonderful time to be doing indie comics. There's like such a great audience out there for backing these things, and you know, who are really passionate about it. Love comics the way that we all, you know, grew up loving them and being into them, and you know, it's just, I mean, it's really nice to be able to, you know, actually talk about things like C.S. Lewis and Jordan Peterson, and you know, some of these really important and, you know, artists and writers and thinkers who've affected a lot of us, and I never take it for granted, you know. And it's nice to see people talking about comics and who are passionate about the art form. And the same thing, I mean, if someone were to ask me, you know, how I kind of rekindled my passion for comics and what's responsible for my Indiegogo, you know, campaigns. Oh yeah, Groken. It's funny, I didn't find out about it on day one, and then I saw this kind of quiet, you know, guy in the streams, and they showed a couple images from it, and I went, that looks pretty good. I wonder if it's just the cover. And then I went in and did this deep dive into the artist's work, and I was like, this is absolutely insane. This is incredible. So yeah, I wasn't an early adopter, but I backed that book as soon as I saw it, you know, and heard about it, and that was brilliant. But you know, it's just a great time, you know, to be making artwork, and you know, there's so many. I realized I'm just working off frame again. But I love this stuff, and I just love the kind of connection you can have with the audience and the conversations you can have. And I think it's you know, I know where I was going. I was going to say, if the thing that sort of led me to Ethan, which led me to thinking about crowdfunding my stuff, and led to the two Indiegogo campaigns. I mean, I wouldn't have done those art books. Funny enough, was of course my reaction to what was going on with Star Wars and The Last Jedi. That's how I found my friend Michael over at the Choice Voice YouTube channel. That's how I found so many people, was just the incredulity so many of us had with what was being done with Star Wars. And you know, Luke Skywalker and George Lucas's world were things that helped me in my youth to kind of, you know, survive, you know, the you know, some of the tough times, some of the really kind of tough experiences, you know, and I know I'm not alone in that. And to see that demolished, you know, it was really tough. And so I found Ethan that way, of all the ways I could have found him. And then I saw his work, and I saw what was happening to him, and it was so horrible. And it just, you know, it's kind of weird how that influence has, you know, been on me. And I feel really fortunate. Ethan, when Ethan commissioned me to do some artwork of Cyberfrog that I think he said he's going to make into a trading card. But either way, it was a tremendous honor. And life is funny that way. But yeah, if it wasn't for The Last Jedi, I think a lot of us wouldn't have found each other. It's just really kind of funny. Yep, that's right. Yep, it's yeah, amen. So true. Yep, you're spot on. You're spot on. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing comics. I've done the odd job here and there, and then self-published, and the amount of work it took to barely get noticed by anybody at a convention, let alone a comic store ordering your books or any of that stuff, versus what I've experienced now. I mean, I published I crowdfunded within probably about a 1.5 year period 2 art books. It might have even been shorter time period than that. And that's when I kind of made the decision, that I was ready to do a comic. And, both of those art books are going to be, obviously be available because I have some of the first printings of those left still for the Indiegogo campaign when I do this book. But I found this enormous audience on Instagram. Funny enough, I've kind of done things backwards. I started putting my artwork up on Instagram, and then I got suddenly the audience for my work kind of exploded, right? And people were interested, and I thought, maybe I'll try to do an art book. So I came at it from that perspective. And all the while, I was obviously following a lot of the CG creators and, watching, watching the pop culture sort of meltdown. And I was like, all right, like this is cool. And then I finally sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but it was just, I'm very passionate about comics, and it was really tough for me because the industry was just so, just impossible for me to ever get anything done in. It was just, everything just never worked out. And just, it was crazy. And so, it was so strange because it just didn't even seem real to me when I started doing what I was doing and started meeting the people I was doing. They were saying all of the stuff that drove me crazy about the industry, drove them crazy, and they were passionate about all the same stuff and wondering why certain things couldn't be done. So I don't even know. I feel just incredibly lucky and fortunate to have found, people who actually are excited to see this stuff. I mean, it's something it doesn't even seem real to me at this point, to have anybody. I mean, the first person who backs this book is just, going to be a part of blowing a hole in this reality that I have in my head of what's possible and what's not possible. And, yeah, it's a big thing for me to even consider, doing this. I think the reason I didn't come out of the gates and try to do a comic book with crowdfunding was because it was too big of a thing to consider. Like, I love comics so much. I just don't know. It would have been just a lot to I think I had to spiritually build to a point where I could sort of handle how emotional of a thought it is to think about being able to make the comic book of my dreams, and it's crazy. I mean, it may sound, I funded 2 art books, but I gotta be honest with you, I won't even believe it's possible until, this book funds. So we'll see, fingers crossed, and, just trying to, just show courage and walk forward, Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The money in it is non-existent. And, it's the fact that the money isn't there and the imagination isn't there, I think, are the 2 most heartbreaking things about it. I mean, that's what breaks my heart. I would have never thought that the decline in the American, comic book industry would be so precipitous and so long lasting, but it seems like it just got less and less creative, less and less financially rewarding as, you know, people came into the field who just really didn't feel like they, you know, didn't have any appreciation. Again, this kind of goes back to the earlier part of what we were talking about. There's this great expression I heard once. I can't remember where I'm stealing it from, but it was an expression, born on third base and can't steal home. I mean, you basically had an industry where a lot of creators came into it and they were born on third base. All they had to do was just get to home plate. And they couldn't do it. They started running in the opposite direction. It's insane. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, don't even get me started. Well, actually, you can get me started on that. That's fine. I think that's one of the most despicable things in the world. And I've said as much. And yeah, I'm where I am right now because I couldn't be a part of any of that crap, is the best way I could think to put it. And so, yeah, I'm self-canceled in that sense. I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of stuff, and I think it's despicable. And it's interesting. So the thing that made me probably made me a hardcore, not even a hardcore, just maybe a committed in probably every meaning of the word, Ethan Van Sciver, you know, fan, and led me to just back Cyberfrog was the 200K stream. And the thing about that, burn the boats. Yeah, my funny, I was visiting my brother-in-law in Houston and telling him about the big decisions I was going to make and big changes in my life I was going to make. And I had just heard Drunk 3PO's, just saw it was an exact timing, Drunk 3PO's Burn the Boats YouTube talk. And he repeated the exact same thing to me. And I was like going, wow, you must be, you know, you must be on the exact same, you know, wavelength as me with that stuff. But I remember the Ethan Van Sciver 200K stream, where the first 100K stream, I remember he was hugging, you know, Andrea, like he goes, we hit 100K, you know, live on the stream, and he was like, I love you, baby, and I was like, oh, that's like, you know, it's great. You know, you're rooting for the guy, and it's nice to see that, you know, there's life after cancellation for him. But the 200K stream was where he talked about all of the things that had happened to him, and, you know, personal stuff, and, you know, moving to be with Andrea and all that stuff. And he broke down, and I was like, I never want to see this person fail. It's just sick what was done to him, and it was done by sick people. It really, it just really affected me deeply. And I remember, I started actually, one of the ways I started communicating with Ethan was, you know, he's being relentlessly called a racist every 5 minutes. And I wrote him, and I basically said, look, I'm in a, you know, mixed, you know, family. My wife is white, and you are not racist. I've experienced racism in my life, and you are absolutely not. And it just, you know, and I hope it was nice to hear, and I'm sure it helped, but it just infuriated me so much. And yeah, can't be a part of that noise. Actually, my last semester teaching, I had some white students come to me and say that they were told, basically they were having the experience I had when I was a kid, which they were being told that they couldn't speak or have a voice in the classroom because of you know, being white. And I was like, I came in the next class after I heard those stories from people, and I told them that anybody who tells you that is evil. It just is what it is. You know, it's evil. Like there's a video why I won't teach prejudice, I think it is, or I forget what it is. That is a couple of videos ago, maybe a couple of months ago, that talks about an experience I had when I was in the 7th grade growing up, you know, and you know, with prejudice. And, you know, I will be damned if I ever am a part of any situation where that's being put forward. Like, I would never do that to another person. I certainly would not be in a situation where people say that the race of the mother of my children is evil. That shit's never gonna happen. Pardon my French, but it's never gonna happen. It's just not alright, you know? Oh, nice. Excellent. Yeah, you boy. Yeah. Love Zach. Love Richard. Yeah, it is. It is. I actually, it's funny that you say that because I was telling somebody, telling my wife the other day, I was like, if you love white fragility, you would love Dianetics. Because she was just talking about that stuff with me. And I said, it's Dianetics. It's absolutely terrifying that people kind of get into that stuff. But, it's like I said, it's they don't even take it seriously. That's the saddest part of it, that a lot of the people, who are pitching this crap don't even take it seriously. I think that's the most disappointing about it. They're so completely cynical about it. And I've had some experiences where people have kind of like revealed their cynicism about it, and it's I think it's funny. I shouldn't be shocked, but I was actually kind of shocked. Yeah, it's a cult. It absolutely is. Oh, I did a video that you can actually find on my Vimeo again, because a lot of this stuff is comic stuff. But on my Vimeo, there's a video I did where I actually go over. It's called I think it's called If It Looks Like a Cult, and it's a breakdown of the ideology behind the Jonestown cult, and with actual quotes from Jim Jones that you could slide into those books, CRT books, and it's worth a watch if you've never seen it. It's a very short video, and it's a great boom. It's it basically, what does he say? If you live, he says something like, if you live in a capitalist America, then you live in a racist America. Like it's stuff that's straight out of that. And what a lot of people don't know about Jonestown, and I don't have, you'd have to look at the video because I have the exact statistics of it, that everybody knows Jonestown, they know Drink the Kool-Aid, they know all that stuff, but I'm shocked at how many people don't know that Jonestown was basically, I think it was like 60, but it might even be more than that, 60% African Americans, and Jim Jones was essentially paying for Jonestown with African American social security checks, elderly people's social security checks. And he was a real sick human being. And that there was a disproportionate number of, not that it should matter, but it was the communist, utopia idea they had. And in the end, it's a death cult. And you listen to the quotes from this guy, and you're almost like, wow. And people don't know about that stuff, or they've never listened to what the ideas of this guy were, and it's weird. It's like people have no context. But one of the best educational experiences I ever had when I was in high school is it was around the same time as the whole Waco thing, and we had a cult deprogrammer come and talk at our school, and I was just completely fascinated by what he was saying about like how cults, affect people and get them to do things they wouldn't normally think to do. And it's really creepy to watch a lot of people kind of slip into groupthink and not be able to think for themselves anymore. But it's my whole thing is, don't drink the Kool-Aid, and don't get yourself into that situation. It's like when we all know it. Not we all know it, but if you know what it is, you know it when you see it. But that video, it's that's the great thing about the bad thing about my name is nobody knows how to pronounce Shanth Enjeti. So if I can get, Ethan's doing a great job with it. He makes the odd mispronunciation, but I wouldn't even expect anybody to know how to pronounce my name. But if you're trying to Google Shanth Enjeti, if you find a Shanth Enjeti, it's me. So if you type in Vimeo and copy and paste my name, you can find those videos. But it's a pretty horrifying thing, but I just don't think most people don't think to put information like that out in short, like 5 or 6 minutes. Like, here you go, do the rest of the research, yourself. But let me just break down, like, this is what this person says. Most people aren't very curious, and like I would always look up where different things came from, and it was amazing to me. It's amazing to me how many people don't know, how many times we've tried some of the stupid ideas people are putting forward, and how unsuccessful these ideas are when they're implemented. And I mean like basic ideas too. I'm not even talking about the bigger ideological, idiotic ideas, but just simple things like teaching people skill and how to actually do things and how valuable that is. It's just crazy. There we go. It's starting to come together. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But the thing I would say though is, it's so funny about that is that how do I word this? It's so much about projection that it's almost laughable. Like they've had to redefine what the terms mean to not be revealed to be the very thing they're speaking out against. So, I mean, right? It's the best way you could put it. Yeah, I think that, I was thinking about this a lot recently, and I think what the biggest thing that they hate more than anything, people who get sucked into this stuff, is they hate excellence. There has to be some conspiracy for why they haven't taken advantage of all the opportunities they have, and it's easier for them to point to some secret man behind the curtain, and it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy, and self-serving is the worst part of it. Like, I don't think they actually care about people's politics. I don't even think they care about people's beliefs. I think they know what bad things are to call people, and their targets, they call people these things based on their ability. So they went after someone like your boy Zach because they resented his insight. He could see what they were doing wrong, and he could see how to do it better. And rather than, it was basically one of those situations where I'll be damned if you tell me how to put my life preserver on. But I'm trying to help you put a life preserver on. I'm trying to save you. Well, no, I'll be damned if you're right. Not. I would rather drown in the certainty that I'm right than live with your help and have to acknowledge that you knew more than me. And the same thing goes with someone like Ethan. I don't think people, honestly, I think these very same people would hate him regardless of his I think his politics, or the idea that they hate him for his politics or his belief system, is just a red herring for the fact they hate him for his talent. They hate him for his skill. Because, to be honest, I mean, the guy is, I mean, if that's your alt-right boogeyman, wow. Like, he's some conservatives would call him a moderate to a liberal. I mean, that's what's so funny about it. It's so absurd, it's ridiculous. But I think the easiest explanation of it is look for people who are unsuccessful and unskilled that they hate. You really can't find anybody. People have to be either successful, talented, or demonstrably smarter than they are and more skilled, and they'll hate them. You know what I mean? I mean, shoot. It's like J.K. Rowling. I mean, go down the list of people, and you'll realize they have nothing in common politically. Only thing they have in common is being successful. That's it. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, it's a very predictable thing. It's the ideology. It's an ideology of resentment under the mask of trying to help people and bring people up. But if someone wants to show me the evidence of it actually helping to bring people up, I'd love to see it. But it doesn't exist. I know from my own experiences as an academic. And that is why I'm not in that field. And those are the, I heard Malin talking about it, but those are the long nights. Those are the conversations with the wife. You know, I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing to say that I'm not going to be a part of something, or I wouldn't have been a part of something, and it's a whole nother thing to walk away from something, and say, no, I can't do this anymore. It was a tough year, or tough decision process, but I got to be able to sleep at night. I just have to, and I'll do what I have to do to, you know, make the best stuff I can, and, you know, do what I need to do with this work, but I can't do it. I just can't do it, you know. Maybe it's because I watched, you know, the movie Gandhi when I was a kid. I guess it was 1982 when that movie came out, and I watched that. But I remember, you know, just really being affected by the importance of you know, not having, you know, prejudice, and being willing to lose your life for it, you know, and hatred of people based on, you know, their race or their, you know, religion or any of that kind of stuff is not for me. And I love this country. Love this country. Feel very grateful to be here and have been born here. It's like winning the lottery. And anything I've been through in my life, dealing with, you know, prejudice or whatever else, which has come from a very diverse cross-section of people, I might add, is nothing compared to some of the stuff I would see, you know, when I would visit India, some of the poverty that you can be born into. And I never forget that, ever. It's not something I'll ever be able to lose, you know. Oh my goodness, what time is it here? Lord, it's 1:17 in the morning. All right, Reagan Lodge, it's great talking to you. I do not have the stamina for 6 hours like you have, and I've got to walk the wife and kids to school in the morning, and you know, have that time with them. But I will talk to you soon. I will be streaming a lot more, and yeah, shoot me a message on Instagram or use a contact form on shanthenjetiart.com. And yeah, I'd be honored and happy to come on your stream sometime and talk art or whatever you want to talk about, if that sounds good. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I hope you had a good dinner. And so take care. Have a good evening. And anybody watching this later, I hope it was an enjoyable conversation and you enjoyed watching the art get made. Be launching the book in October. Link to sign up for the email list is in the description. And yeah, take care, Reagan Lodge, and take care, everybody watching this. All right, and I will see you guys later. Peace.
Kick off! Ain't got nothing on you!